Hey there, friends. Dave Paulides, CanAm Missing Project, a copyrighted edition for our video channel. And I'm here on a missing persons case. Huck is sitting on the floor at my feet. And we got winds today of about 45 miles an hour. It's blowing like heck. And went outside for a while. Couldn't hear myself think. That coupled with what could I say? Trees going down, people driving crazy in the wind. I said, better off I just kind of hang loose here in the studio library and talk to you. A couple of things. First of all, the way our world is right now, we need to be especially careful. If you're a grandparent, aunt, uncle, a new parent with a child. The story I'm going to tell you today involves a very young child. It was a different time when this happened compared to today. Even compared to the time when I raised my kids, I would never have allowed my small child to go as far as this one did. And I kept very close tabs on him. But again, it was a different time. And now, we're 2023, and we have more people in our country that we don't have a clue about who is here. And in my talks with Border Patrol, we have a lot of really bad people in our country right now. So it would be urgently important that you keep one eye on your small child all the time. You're outdoors, public places, etc. Today, I was at the store. I'm doing some shopping. A couple of older ladies are next to me in the vegetable fruit section. And they have their purse on their cart, and their back is turned completely away from their purse. I'm looking around thinking, if there's a criminal around, they're going to victimize these people. When you're in a store, do not leave your purse on your shopping cart. Keep it over your shoulder, under your arm, all the time. The minute you take your eye off your purse, if there's a criminal in that area, they're going to be on that purse, and away they go with some of your property. Just thought about that today when I was looking at it, and I said, I got to remember to say that on my YouTube. But with children, keep them in the cart if you can while you're shopping. Don't turn your back on them. A lot of child abductions occur in public areas, stores, shopping malls. Last thing before I go on to this segment, never, ever, never let your child go into a public restroom by themselves at a store or a shopping mall. Never, ever. I was part of a detail at one point in San Jose that we had to go in and we work these bathrooms for a while at a public mall, because people had complained about their kids walking in and seeing two other people doing lewd acts in front of their children. Other people complained that these certain people were grabbing children. We went in there and ended up arresting dozens of people because these bathrooms had notoriety as a place to go and meet other freaky people that like to do the same things that these guys did. I was stunned. These were malls that I went into with my kids and my wife, and it was an absolutely frightening experience. And you think you know some people. I actually arrested a professor at San Jose State University doing some of these things. So anybody can be involved in this kind of stuff. You just never know. So be careful. Now this story. You've never heard it before. It's never in any of my books. It's truly bizarre. But it falls in line with the last couple of missing person cases I've done and you've watched here on this channel. And I warned you about this on the last missing person video I did, so I wanted you to kind of think about it. This little boy's name was Leslie Delano. He was 20 months old. He went missing July 8th, 1932 at about noon to 12:30. He was playing at a next door neighbor's home in a place called Columbia Heights, which is, it's like a suburb of Minneapolis, St. Paul. Now, Mrs. Delano had a new baby at home and knew the neighbors, and Leslie was playing in their backyard in a sandbox. But about 12:30, she couldn't locate him. Started looking around, started looking in the sandbox, talked to the neighbors. Neighbors said they thought Leslie had walked down the street. Well, she searched, couldn't find him. Eventually got all the neighbors in her area to get involved. Now let me premise this. Hey, that Minneapolis, St. Paul has absolutely the strangest disappearances, or equal to the strangest disappearances I've ever written about. In Missing 411, A Sobering Coincidence, I wrote about a whole series of cases from Minneapolis, St. Paul in this book. Can't really explain it other than the Mississippi River goes through there. Mississippi River comes from the Gulf of Mexico, goes down to the Gulf of Mexico. It's a huge river. Anything could go up it from the Gulf. So back to the story. Neighbors search until about 2:30. They call the police. Police respond. They start searching the neighborhood. And at about 5 p.m., they found a witness 3, maybe 4 houses away from Leslie's, that multiple people said Leslie was in the backyard playing there. Now remember, 20 months old. Well, they started searching. The only way he could get to that house was to go out to the front yard, and walk down the front yards or walk down the sidewalks. Leslie was described as a boy with blonde hair. It's a picture of Leslie at the time. Kind of get a feeling for what he looked like. Hard to determine his size from this. Parents stated that he liked to play. Well, the police were on scene, and they stayed on scene that night. They were searching a slough in a place called White Bear Lake, kind of behind the residences. Now, if you know Minneapolis, this is Minneapolis. This is Columbia Heights, right next to the Mississippi River. This would be the Mall of America down here. St. Paul International Airport. So this is kind of the northern section of Minneapolis. Columbia Heights. I've been there. I've actually spent a lot of time in Minneapolis. Ben played quite a few games there over the years. Well, on July 8th, when the father heard that Leslie was missing, he came home. And after they hadn't found the boy, and after they'd been searching for about 8-9 hours, father told the press his son had to have been abducted. He's not going to walk far. We should have found him. They had searched a series of troughs, dry sloughs, small creeks, not very deep. They weren't finding anything. July 9th. Police bring in canines from around the city and other jurisdictions. And they were searching the area around the 900 block of 41st Avenue Northeast in Columbia Heights. Kind of give you an area where they were at specifically. On that day, 2 different dogs were utilized. One dog was put on the scent. He took off on a dead run. And several hundred yards away, he found some clothing that belonged to Leslie that was hidden by the police as a test to see if this dog could find it. Now, I've been on a lot of searches in my day. I've read thousands of cases. I've never heard of this done. So it sounds like someone was pretty leery of these dogs. Now, the second dog that they had circled 2 blocks of the neighborhood 2 times and then returned to exactly where he started, sat down, and gave up. What does that tell me? That tells me that the dog was pretty confused. He smelled a scent in the air, but he couldn't put his finger on where it was at. So he walked and he tried to minimize the area that the scent would have been in, like a really well-trained dog. And he came back to the exact scene, said, "I can't find it." That's troubling. It means that somewhere in the air was Leslie's scent, but it wasn't specific anywhere on the ground, which is odd. Late on July 9th, that first day, heavy rains inundated the neighborhood where they were searching. It really put searchers in an awkward circumstance then. On July 10th, there was a cesspool that was found in the neighborhood. It was 26 foot deep. It was dry, and a search and rescue member was lowered into the bottom with a flashlight and searched it. They found nothing. They had about 150 searchers combing the neighborhood. The local police officers asked the governor for National Guard help. And on July 11th, the troops arrived. 100 National Guardsmen, 77 men from the 151st Artillery, 30 men from the 109th Air Squadron, and the governor at the time of Minnesota was a man named Floyd Olson. He promised to the press that if none of the leads produced anything sufficient in the next several days, his criminal abduction and interference task force would take over the case. Never heard a governor say that. I like his attitude. Also on the 11th, there were 2 airplanes that scanned the area from the sky looking for anything unusual. Also at the end of that day, Leslie's dad was interviewed by the press. He had searched every day for 12 to 16 hours a day himself. He said he couldn't wrap his head around his son being outside this area. He said his son had always been in this area, never wandered past a few homes, didn't know the area outside. And because they hadn't found anything, he was still working under the belief his son had been abducted. July 12th. More volunteers from around Minneapolis, St. Paul arrived. The teams were put in organized search groups, half by the police and half by a local pastor, reverend, that was working with the team to get more people in. And it was at this point that the detectives started to interview family members, neighbors, business people that had known to go through the area, gypsies that had camped not too far away. It was a massive effort. One thing I realized in this search, that even though it was 1932, the police were heavily committed to looking for Leslie. This wasn't half-hearted. This was huge for the state of Minnesota, and it made huge headlines. 7/13, grid searches of the neighborhood that had already been searched 1 and 2 times were continuing to be searched 3 and 4 times. Homes were searched under the volunteer assistance of homeowners. You weren't finding anything. The frustration level of the search teams was getting critical. Mrs. Delano, in several news reports, said that she was highly depressed, had a lot of guilt. I feel that guilt. I understand. July 14th. Soldiers that were still on site were given the toughest of assignments. They were told to go into the bogs and swamps, creeks, the dirtiest places, and search them inch by inch. They were looking for evidence. They were looking for a body. One thing that became obvious in these articles was that the soldiers wanted to be there. They wanted to find Leslie alive. And they took their job super seriously. There wasn't one complaint listed anywhere by these guys. It was impressive. July 15th. Search coordinators decided to take a different path. They had already searched the fields, the neighborhoods, the yards, the homes 3 and 4 times. Now they knew that all of the cesspools in this neighborhood had been searched at least twice. But now they were going to give the soldiers some different tools. They were going to give them some rope, some flashlights. If they had to go down into the cesspool to do it, they wanted to clear that issue up permanently. So they did that. Soldiers were put into 4 different teams, and they took off into the neighborhood, ensuring that each cesspool would get searched. At about 3 p.m. on July 15th, one of these National Guard search teams was 150 feet from the Delano home and about 20 feet off the front porch of one of these homes. And they found a cesspool that had a wood plug in it. The opening of the cesspool was 10 inches by 9 inches. So 10 inches by 9 inches. Very small. And it was plugged. Now here's a picture of that actual location. Here's the plug. It was in the hole, but that was the location. These are the group of men that were searching. This was 951 41st Avenue, Northeast Columbia Heights. They tied a rope around a powerful flashlight, stuck it down into the hole, and they said that they thought they saw something. So the searchers said that one at a time they put their hands over their eyes to block the sun and look down in. And they thought that they were seeing something red down in the hole. Now they knew that Leslie was wearing something red. They also had the knowledge that 5 days earlier, the Columbia Heights police had searched this specific cesspool with the same manner that the National Guard were searching. They found nothing. So the National Guard ties the rope to the flashlight, drops it in, and each of the 4 National Guardsmen get down on their knees and put their face down into the hole and swear they see something down there. They thought it was a doll. Well, they brought over the police. Now again, the opening was 10 inches by 9 inches. The pit went down straight like a square, 10 feet. And then it opens at the bottom to a 4 foot by 4 foot square bottom. Well, the police get it and look, and they say, we think there's a body down there. So they get permission to tear that whole area apart and dig down into that pit. Well, once they get it opened wide enough, they get a searcher to get down inside, and they find Leslie Delano wearing his baby suit, slightly torn in a few places. National Guard had reported that there were cobwebs all over the top of this cistern. The coroner was called, and the coroner said right away, he didn't go down that way because I don't believe he could fit in that hole. Those were his words. Other searchers said that they thought that Leslie died immediately when he fell down into the hole. But that conflicted with what the coroner said, that Leslie couldn't have gone in that hole. Well, if he didn't go in the hole, how did he get at the bottom of the hole? Well, the coroner listed a series of facts at the inquest. Now, just so you understand, an inquest is kind of like a hearing. Don't have them much anymore, but it's for the public. You can go to them, and everybody presents their best evidence, and then a decision is made, kind of like a jury, about what they think might have happened. So the coroner at the inquest went through and said, well, Leslie was last seen July 8th at 12:30 p.m. This is real important, folks. Stay with me. (12:30), July 8th. Body found July 15th, 3 p.m. Deceased. The forensics on the body showed that Leslie died 12 to 24 hours before he was found on July 15th, meaning he died between July 14th and July 15th when he was found. Now, this doctor was no half-hearted flunky. Dr. McCarthy was a pathologist and an associate professor of pathology at the University of Minnesota. He stated that nobody can live without water more than 5 days. Ka-ching. Huge point. Leslie was last seen July 8th. 5 days would have been July 13th. If he was alive 6 days, how was that possible? Pit was searched July 10th. The police officers swear there was nobody inside. When they looked down in the hole, they saw dirt. Well, the police went back into that hole, and they stated that somebody the size of Leslie could be on the side of the hole and not be seen. And they saw some fingerprints and scratch marks on the side of the hole, presumably made by Leslie. Now, Leslie had to have been alive in that pit for some period of time. Thus, the making of the scratch marks along the side of the walls. But if he wasn't seen by searchers, and he didn't make any sounds that were able to be heard, and presumably he had to have been alive when they looked inside July 10th, based on the forensics, how can that be? How could he have gotten in the hole, yet the top of the pit was always covered? He couldn't have gone in the pit and then put the top back on at 20 months old. Another important point. The coroner specifically stated he did not believe that Leslie could have fit in that opening. If he couldn't have fit in the opening, how did he get at the bottom of the pit? he was in the pit when they searched it July 10th, why didn't they hear any sounds? The inquest reached a verdict of accidental death. And the cause of death, well, ready for this? They listed it cause of death as fright, starvation, or suffocation, or a combination of all factors. I was a policeman for 20 years. I was a private investigator, and I still am. And I have read thousands of search and rescue reports and hundreds of coroner's reports. I've never read, in the last 25 years, any coroner's report that lists fright as a cause of death. When they say that it was by fright, starvation, or suffocation, or a combination of all factors, friends, they have no idea what caused his death. Period. Because if they did, they would specifically list that as the cause of death. Because the cause of death is a rifle shot. Boom. You know exactly what caused that person to die. That wasn't a rifle. That was a shotgun blast. Hoping that just one of them sticks. Many times in these articles that I read on this case, they called this one of the greatest mysteries, a true mystery. And when you look at, there's Leslie, there's the hole. Did Leslie fit in that hole? Look at his head, look at his shoulders. Hard to get dimensions from looking at a photo. But I'll be gosh darned. If a coroner in 1932 says that this boy didn't fit into that hole, I'm sorry, folks. I believe him. So what does that leave us? That leaves us with, fuck, hey, what are you doing, girl? Yeah, you want to play? You want to say hi to the people? You're a good girl. Good girl. I know I heard you. What does that leave us? Let your own mind wander on this. Blue-eyed boy, 20 months old. How mobile is he? Would he even be strong enough to lift that lid off that cesspool? And then why would he lift the lid off? Makes no sense at all. And the owners had stated that the lid was always on, and nobody had seen the lid off. If Leslie had gone in the hole, the lid would have been off, but it wasn't. And lastly, please, the coroner stated he did not believe Leslie went down that hole because he couldn't fit in it. There was no clothing. There was nothing found on the side of that, as though he ripped it off as he went down. There were some scratch marks found on his clothing, but there were also nail marks and nails at the bottom of that hole where they think maybe he got scratched on while he was alive. But when police were searching that hole, he wasn't there, in my opinion. And in the police's opinion, where was he? Where was Leslie from the time he disappeared to the time he ended up in that hole? It's one of the great mysteries, folks. And there are no easy answers. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Please share it with people. No one's ever written about this. No one's ever talked about it. I appreciate you being here. Huck appreciates you being here. And today, go out and do something for someone. Be a good person. And let's make our world a better place. Light us out.